Previously on A Love That Lingered, Arthur and Grace had celebrated the most extravagant of weddings, surrounded by family, friends, and the quiet hum of hope for the future. The night ended with a dance for two where heartbeats replaced music and vows felt as eternal as the stars. The morning after marked the first steps of their new life together, wrapped in the bliss of love, unshaken by the storms looming beyond the horizon. This is episode 22, Darkness in the Distance. The days following the wedding carried a dreamlike quality, as though time itself had slowed in reverence to their love. The Caldwell Manor, often quiet and somber, now seemed to breathe with new life. Grace's laughter echoed down the long halls, mingling with Arthur's voice in the mornings as they took breakfast together by the sunlit windows. Even Oliver, ever the composed butler, seemed to soften, his subtle smiles betraying a sense of relief that, for once, the house knew joy instead of mourning. Arthur had rearranged his schedules, taking great pains to make room for stolen moments with Grace. Morning rides became routine, he on horseback, she on her mare, with dew still clinging to the grass. Afternoons found them in the library where Grace would read aloud and Arthur would pretend to listen, though his eyes often lingered on her more than the pages. Evenings were the most sacred, spent in their shared chamber, the kind of quiet intimacy that only comes with love, still new and untested. But peace, however cherished, has a fragile spine. It trembles at the touch of distant storms. Within a fortnight, Arthur began receiving letters sealed with the sigil of the crown. He never opened them before Grace, always waiting until he was alone in his study. But Grace noticed the shift in his expression afterward, the furrow of his brow, the tension in his jaw. Though the manor remained untouched, whispers spread through town and among servants. Skirmishes had erupted near the borders. A neighboring kingdom tested its reach, with small brutal conflicts. Though Arthur had not yet been summoned, the shadow of duty lingered near. Grace felt it even in their happiest hours. A look in Arthur's eyes when he thought she wasn't watching betrayed the truth. Their time was still theirs, but perhaps not for long. It was one such morning, with soft sunlight spilling into their chamber, when Grace asked what weighed on his mind. Arthur had been fastening his cufflinks, his motions slowed by thought, when Grace's hand gently covered his. "You think I don't notice," she said softly, her green eyes searching his face. "But you've been elsewhere, Arthur. Those letters, what do they say?" Arthur hesitated. He had sworn not to burden her, not so soon after binding their lives together, yet lying to Grace felt impossible. He sighed, sitting beside her on the edge of the bed. "They say the borders are restless," he admitted, "that there have been raids, small but bloody. For now, the army holds. For now, I am not summoned. But Grace," his voice faltered, uncharacteristically uncertain, "if it spreads further, I will have no choice." Grace tightened her hold on his hand. "And you fear that day is close." He looked at her then, his aquamarine eyes storm-tossed. And for a moment the mask he wore for everyone else slipped. "I do. Not for myself, but for you. I cannot bear the thought of leaving you, not when we've only just begun this life together." Her heart ached at his words, but she steadied herself. "Arthur Caldwell, you've never failed to return to me, not from duty, not from pain. And if you are called, I will wait for you. But until then, we must not let shadows steal the joy of today." Her resolve struck him like light through fog. He pulled her into his arms, burying his face in her hair, as though her very presence could anchor him to peace. Later that day, Oliver entered Arthur's study with a new letter in hand. "From the capital," he announced quietly. Arthur broke the seal, eyes scanning the page. His shoulders tensed, but then relief. "It is only an update. The situation remains contained." Oliver's gaze flickered. "But for how long?" Arthur didn't answer, instead setting the letter aside and looking out the window where Grace tended the roses. "As long as it can hold, Oliver, for her sake." The butler bowed, but his expression revealed a truth both men knew. The reprieve was temporary. That evening, Arthur returned to Grace in the garden, where twilight bathed the flowers in silver. She was kneeling among the roses, her hands dusted with earth. "You should let the gardener do that," Arthur teased gently, helping her to her feet. "And miss the satisfaction of seeing them bloom by my own care?" she countered, brushing her hands clean. Arthur smiled faintly, then grew serious. "Grace, I don't know what the weeks ahead will bring, but I swear to you, no matter where I am, my heart belongs only here, with you." She cupped his cheek, her thumb brushing lightly against the stubble there. "Then we'll hold to that. Whatever comes, Arthur, we face it together." He kissed her then, slow and reverent, as though binding his vow in that moment. And though neither said it aloud, both felt the same truth. Every day was precious, more so now than ever. The night ended in quiet splendor. After supper, after laughter with his mother, after the manor fell still, Arthur and Grace retreated once more to their shared room. They lay close, her head on his chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart. Outside, the wind picked up, rustling the trees with an eerie insistence, as though carrying with it the faintest echo of distant battles. Arthur pressed a kiss to Grace's hair, his arm tightening around her. "For tonight," he whispered, "it is only us." And so they slept, clinging to that fragile peace, while in the darkness beyond their world, the storm gathered strength.